Well, hello, my friends, and welcome once again to the Romano Report Podcast. This is episode 3, and I am recording on Friday afternoon, August 15th. Now, I want to begin with what's going on today in Alaska. I'm not going to talk about it very much because I'm not going to take the bait. I'm referring, of course, to the convicted felon, insurrectionist, criminal, Donald Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, which Donald Trump multiple times just last week referred to as Russia. By the way, has the media covered that much at all? The President of the United States referring to Alaska as Russia? Because it seems to me that the last president, Joe Biden, if he had done anything like refer to Alaska as Russia, we would be treated to hour-long special news reports about the president's mental decline. And they would be asking questions like, is this man fit to be president? And should the cabinet invoke the 25th Amendment to strip him of his authority as president? Because clearly, if he on more than one occasion refers to Alaska as Russia, that he is clearly demented past the point that he could possibly even be considered sane enough to do this job. That's what would be happening if Joe Biden referred to Alaska as Russia. But Donald Trump did it multiple times, and I don't know, I haven't heard it covered very much in the news. I will, however, admit that I don't watch the mainstream media much at all because they're so damn pathetic. Anyway, I am not going to take the bait and talk about what's going on in Alaska much at all because it is a distraction. It is a distraction from multiple things, chief among them Epstein and Donald Trump's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, which I am convinced must be really, really bad. Anyway, how do I know that this is just a distraction? Because there's no deal. You know, when you have a summit meeting, you have all the details worked out before you ever even have the meeting. The meeting is a formality. The staffs agree to everything, all the terms, if there's a deal, what the terms of the deal is. It's all planned out very carefully in advance, and only after everything is worked out do you actually have the two leaders meet. Well, they're going into this meeting in Alaska with nothing worked out, nothing agreed to. Apparently, it's just going to be our convicted felon president and Vladimir Putin sitting in a room just with negotiators. And they're just going to hammer out some sort of deal. And of course, any deal that those two come up with is dead on arrival. It's null and void. It's meaningless because these conversations don't even include Ukraine. How are you going to negotiate an end to the war if you completely disinvite and ignore one of the two parties to that war? It's a joke. This isn't designed to come up with anything that's going to be agreed upon. And if Ukraine's not going to agree to it, then it doesn't matter what these two jackasses agree to. But beyond that, can you imagine Donald Trump alone with Vladimir Putin and nobody there except interpreters? Donald Trump, even if he were inclined to try to negotiate some settlement to this war, which of course is not his purpose at all, and to the extent that it might be, it would be only to negotiate an end to the war that gives Vladimir Putin everything that he wants, because he is Putin's puppet. But even if, just assuming for purposes of this discussion here for a second, that he was inclined to be a neutral arbiter and to try to bring a legitimate end to this war that respects both parties, right? Although both parties are not the same in this and shouldn't be treated the same in this. Ukraine is the victim of an illegal invasion, and those two shouldn't be treated the same. But anyway, if Trump was really a neutral arbiter and just wanted to end the killing and wanted to bring about an end to this war, and he goes in there with Vladimir Putin and two interpreters, Vladimir Putin's coming out with everything he wants anyway. Donald Trump is an idiot. He would be taken to the cleaners. Vladimir Putin would mop the floor with this friggin' guy. But of course, that's not what Donald Trump is trying to do. Donald Trump, first and foremost, is trying to distract from Epstein. That's what this is about. So we're not going to deal with the substance of this at all. I do, however, want to show you a clip of our president welcoming the president of Russia to Alaska. I want you to watch how excited this orange buffoon is. Let me bring it up here. Let me expand this. I can't. I'm a technological illiterate. I should have. Whatever. Okay, you can see that. Watch Donald Trump's demeanor as he sees Vladimir Putin walking towards him. There's no sound on this, by the way. Was that a clap? Oh, it was a clap. There's another one. He's pacing with excitement. He can't believe. Another clap. And another clap. He's like a fucking fanboy. And there we have it. I'm surprised he doesn't give him a big fat sloppy kiss. This is disgusting. And then they walk away. I'm surprised they're not arm in arm. What a freaking disgrace. This is the President of the United States welcoming a war criminal to American soil, literally rolling out the red carpet and cheering for him as he walks toward him. Clapping like a little fangirl going to a boy band concert. Only thing left for Donald Trump to do is throw his panties at him, or his diaper. What a disgusting sight. That should make every American sick to their stomach. Anyway, I wanted just for you to see that image of the American president clapping, giddy with excitement and anticipation, clapping for the war criminal president of Russia on the red carpet. What a freaking disgrace. Okay, but you know what? I didn't mean to do that. Back on me. There we go. But you know what? All of this is not fooling anybody. Donald Trump, as Gavin Newsom said yesterday, which I'll get to in a minute, said that Donald Trump is the most unpopular president in the modern era, which is true. He is, in fact, the single most unpopular president at this point in his presidency of any president in history, insofar as we have polling on this subject. He is dead last, rock bottom. And I've got a Pew Research poll here. This was conducted August 4th through the 10th. Today is the 15th. Donald Trump's approval, 38%. I am seeing poll after poll after poll showing him in the 30s. The only polls that I have seen that have him in the 40s, and they're the low 40s, are polls that consistently are outliers that show Donald Trump higher than any of the other polls. I think it's safe to say that he is in the 30s now, pretty damn consistently. He is horribly unpopular, and I don't see how kissing the president of Russia's ass, rolling out the red carpet, and acting like a fangirl is going to improve that. Now let me talk a little bit about Gavin Newsom and what he did yesterday. He gave a fantastic speech in which he made clear that he is taking the gloves off, that he is not going to sit idly by as Donald Trump and his MAGA cult try to rig the midterm elections. And by the way, just so that we're all clear about what Republicans are doing here, because I got a comment yesterday from somebody trying to both sides this thing. I am so sick of the people who both sides everything. Oh, both parties do it. His point was that both parties gerrymander, that it's awful and we should stop the practice, but both parties do it and they're equally to blame and you should be just as mad at Democrats who gerrymander. That's not the point, genius, whoever you were. Yes, both parties gerrymander, without question. They all do it. Both sides do it. That is true. But that's not what the problem is right now. Gerrymandering is a problem. But what is special here, especially horrible here, about what Donald Trump and Republicans are doing, is that they are doing this mid-decade. The congressional maps for members of the House of Representatives are drawn every 10 years based on the census, which is conducted every 10 years. The current congressional maps are based on the last census, which was conducted in 2020. Who was president in 2020? Donald Trump. Donald Trump conducted the last census. And by the way, I haven't heard this mentioned much since he posted about this last week, but he said he's ordering a new census. Now, that is completely illegal and unconstitutional because the census is up to Congress to order and to dictate what the terms of the census are going to be, what information they want gathered, how they want it conducted. That's up to Congress. The Census Clause is in Article 1 of the Constitution, which lays out the powers of Congress. The president is only allowed to conduct a census as Congress shall establish by law. That's what the Constitution says. So him ordering a new census on his own, thoroughly unconstitutional. And I do not believe it will survive a court challenge if he actually tries to do it. So that's number one. But number two, if this is so bad, if the last census was so bad that we have to order a new census, wait a minute. Donald Trump conducted the last census. And I thought everything Donald Trump does is perfect. So if he conducted a perfect census in 2020, why does he need to conduct another one? Because he wants to rig the numbers. Thank God he's not going to be president the next time a census is conducted. Because now we know for a fact that this man is just going to outright rig everything, including numbers. That's why he fired the commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and he put a sycophant in there. By the way, did you see that sycophant who he is making commissioner of the Bureau of Labor Statistics was a January 6th insurrectionist. There is a video of him in the crowd, part of the mob. That's who is at the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Which means we can't ever, once this guy's in place, we can't ever trust any numbers that come out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And just like we can't trust any economic numbers, we can't trust any census numbers that Donald Trump would be responsible for overseeing. And thank God he's not going to be president the next time the census is conducted. But that's why he wants to do one now. He's not going to be able to. And he wants to do it before the midterms so that he can lie about the numbers, give his red states a lot more seats, and take take seats away from the blue states. That's what he'll do. He'll rig the numbers, lie about the numbers to make it look like the population of the red states are much greater than they are, and the population of the blue states is much smaller than they are, so that they can give more seats to the red states and take away seats from the blue states. He wants to do this in time for the midterm elections so that he can rig those. Of course, he's not going to be able to. And by the way, if he spends one dime, well, it's unconstitutional for him to conduct it. That's an impeachable offense right there. If he spends a single penny to conduct a census that has not been approved by Congress, that's an impeachable offense. That's a violation of yet another part of the Constitution, the Appropriations Clause, which makes very clear that the president can spend no money unless it has been appropriated by Congress. And if Congress didn't authorize this census, then it certainly didn't authorize any money be spent for an illegal census. So that would be two violations of the Constitution, two grounds for his impeachment and removal. How many grounds are we up to by now? How many impeachable offenses has this piece of shit committed by now? I can't even keep track. But anyways, that's what he's doing. He's not going to be able to. But that's what he's trying to do. And even if he goes through with trying to do this, and the courts allow him to, which I don't believe, even this corrupt Supreme Court is not going. It's very clear. Congress has to order the census, okay? He's not getting away with it through the courts. And by the way, if he does conduct a census that is not authorized by Congress, it's an illegal census, and it has no force of law. And the states do not need to redistrict based on his bullshit illegal census. And as I'm going to talk about repeatedly in the months to come, and as I have in the past, the states are where we can be fighting back against a lot of this stuff. Trump can make all kinds of pronouncements. Now, he can give an order to his executive branch, and they work for him, so they'll do it. But when he gives orders to the states, they could tell him to go pound sand. So if he does an illegal census that is not authorized by Congress, and then he says to the states, hey, these are the new numbers. You have to base your congressional district off of this new census data. They can say, go pound sand. That's an illegal census. We don't have to do what you say. We don't work for you. But on top of that, it's not even possible to conduct a census in time for the midterm elections. He'd have to conduct the census and be done with it and all the numbers reported in time for the states to redraw congressional districts based on the new census numbers. But all of this is supposed to happen every 10 years anyway, and it's only been 5. So this whole thing is just freaking ridiculous. This is not just an authoritarian dictator, but one who is a blithering idiot and thoroughly incompetent. So none of this is going to happen. Because it's not even possible. Put aside the legalities of it for a minute. It's not even possible. It takes a long time to conduct a census. It's a complicated undertaking. And there are no plans underway. There's been no advanced planning for a census to be conducted in 2025 or 2026. Because the next one's not supposed to be done until 2030. So it's not even possible to get it done in that time frame, even if it were legal, which it's not. Anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, yes. Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom, as governor of California, took the gloves off and said, if Texas goes through with their redistricting, then we will too. And we're a bigger state than Texas. We have more people than Texas. And whatever they do, we're going to nullify it. Because we're going to redistrict. If Texas wants to go down this road, then we will too. We're not going to be defenseless and let Republicans do whatever the hell they want and we sit back and just take it. The time for that is over. And I couldn't be happier to hear what Gavin Newsom said yesterday and to see what he's doing. And I hope more governors around the country do the same thing. It is in the states that we can push back against this tyrannical authoritarian overreach by a corrupt, incompetent buffoon of a president. As I said, one of the reasons people think that Donald Trump is able to do whatever he wants, and they worry about him doing things like canceling elections, which is not going to happen, and I'll explain why. But people think that he'll be able to because he's been able to do so much and he's gotten away with it, even though it's illegal. Here's the distinction. Here's the major difference, and it's important to understand. So much of what Donald Trump has done has been by making his executive branch that he controls do things that are not legal and that are not constitutional. But the fact is, he controls the executive branch. So when he tells them to do something, whether it's legal or not, they're going to do it. He has control over the executive branch of the federal government. So yes, he's not supposed to be able to do so many of these things. They're illegal and unconstitutional. But he's giving an order to his executive branch to do these things, so they do it because they work for him. Now, here's why he won't be able to do things like cancel elections. Because he doesn't control elections. His executive branch has no control over any elections. There's not a single election anywhere in the country that is controlled by the federal government, that is controlled by Donald Trump and his administration. They're all controlled by the states. They are state and local elections, even elections for president and senator and members of Congress. Even federal elections are controlled by the states. So they don't have to do a damn thing Donald Trump says. So people worry about, he's going to cancel elections. First of all, he wouldn't want to. If he follows the mold of every other dictator throughout history, he's not going to want to cancel elections. Dictators have elections. They love elections because what they do is they rig them. They don't cancel them. They just rig the outcome. But why they love elections, rigged elections, is because it gives the appearance that their rule is legitimate. And they can say, look, I won 98% of the vote last year. My people love me. I'm not a dictator. I was elected. So they love elections as long as they can rig them because it gives them the appearance or the arguable appearance of legitimacy. And that's what Donald Trump would want. He wants to say, I won the biggest election ever. I'm not a dictator. I'm the most popular president ever. But beyond that, he can't cancel elections because he doesn't control them. So if he says, I'm signing an executive order canceling elections, well, it's laughable. Of course, he has no authority for that. And I see people all the time saying this as well. He'll declare an emergency and cancel elections. They think that he has that power. Guys, he doesn't have that power. There is no provision in the Constitution that gives the president the authority to cancel or postpone the elections for any reason. Not for some declared emergency, not even for war. There is no circumstance that gives the president any authority whatsoever to cancel or delay elections. He doesn't have that power. And as I say, the elections are controlled by the states. So if he says, I'm signing an executive order to cancel elections for whatever reason, the states can just say, screw you, buddy. You have no authority to tell us what to do. We're holding elections. Now, maybe some of the red states controlled by MAGA cult sycophant governors and legislatures, maybe they'll go along and cancel elections. Well, you go right ahead, geniuses. You know what that means? That means that the only people who will be elected to Congress will be Democrats. Will be people from blue states. So if that's what you want to do, if you want to sit it out and cancel your own elections and just let the blue states send their representatives to Congress, fine. Let them control Washington if that's what you want to do. This idea that Donald Trump will always get his way is laughable. Yes, he can order his executive branch to do all kinds of illegal and unconstitutional things. But he ain't taking over this country unless he gets the states to fall in line. And they don't have to do a damn thing, he says. They don't work for Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not outrank the governors. Governors aren't subordinate to the president. They're two completely different systems. Governors don't report to the president. They don't take orders from him. And when you see what he's doing in Washington, D.C., and he's threatening to do in other places, he has taken over policing in Washington, D.C. That's what he has done. He has taken over control of the Metropolitan Police Department in Washington, D.C. Now, as awful, as thuggish and authoritarian as that is, and everyone should be outraged by it, it's not necessarily illegal. Because Washington is a federal district. It's not a state. It's not treated the same as a state. It's not the same in our constitutional system as a state. It's federal. So the president really does have a certain amount of control over Washington because it's a federal district. On top of that, there is a statute passed by Congress which authorizes the president on an emergency basis to take control of the police in Washington, D.C. Now, I have not read in detail the statute. I'm not going to pretend to you that I'm an expert on this, so I'm not expert and up on all the nuances and the specifics of that law. I know that a lawsuit has been filed challenging Donald Trump's federalization of the police department, or the takeover of the Washington Police Department. And we'll see what's in their lawsuit. And this may in fact be illegal. He may not be complying with the statute, but there is a statute. So it's not the same thing as him taking over a state. And of course, his emergency declaration here is a joke because some 22-year-old named Big Balls got beat up by some teenagers. That is sufficient emergency for the president to take over the police department of Washington, D.C.? Seems pretty suspect to me, don't you think? We'll see how that lawsuit plays out. But at least there is a statutory basis, a statute that he can invoke, whether he's doing it legally or not. And I sure as hell hope that he is slapped down by the courts. But again, I'm not an expert on that statute, so I'm not going to pretend to you that I am. But at least there is a statute there that Congress gave the president under certain circumstances he can take over the police department. There is no such authorization. And Congress itself would have no legal authority to authorize the president to take over any states. Okay, they don't have that authority in our constitutional system. The federal government, whether it's the president or the Congress, has no authority to take over states like that. Okay, so that's not a thing. So if you're thinking, well, this MAGA Congress will just give them the authority, now that would be flatly unconstitutional. And again, the states would be well within their rights, even if Congress did pass such a law like that, to tell the president, get the hell out of here, go pound sand, we're not handing over control of the police to you. That is illegal. So the police don't ever report to the president of the United States in any of these states and localities. Even if the president called up some chief of police directly and tried to give him an order, that chief of police, if he's doing what he should tell the president to go pound sand. I don't work for you. I report to the mayor or whoever he might report to. And so the power to resist some of these encroachments, some of these authoritarian overreaches of this criminal, the power lies in the states. And I want to give you an example. Not just pushing back directly against Donald Trump, but also taking action against his fascist foot soldiers. I've been telling you for months now that if Donald Trump directs these thugs in ICE or any of these other federal agencies to go into the states and use excessive force against civilians, that those are crimes. Law enforcement, whether it's state or federal, has no legal authority to use any force against American citizens or anyone else unless it is reasonably required to effectuate a lawful arrest or to defend themselves. Any force beyond that is excessive force, and it is illegal. And it is a crime. And they could be arrested and prosecuted for doing it. Now, I understand Donald Trump's DOJ, Pam Bondi, she's not going to arrest any of these federal officials who beat American citizens or anyone else. And by the way, anyone in this country is just as protected by our criminal laws as American citizens. So these federal officials, these thugs, have no more legal right to go, beat up some undocumented migrant than they do an American citizen. But we know that Pam Bondi is not going to hold them accountable under law. But guess what? When these things are happening, unless they're happening in Washington, D.C., or on federal property somewhere, then it's happening in a state. And state law also applies. Federal officials, these friggin' brown shirts, these thugs, aren't immune from state laws just because they're federal law enforcement or National Guard or whoever the hell it is. They're not immune from state laws. So when these guys, these thugs, use excessive force and commit assault against somebody, they are violating state law and can be arrested and prosecuted in the states. And I want to give you a good example of exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you a video that should make you very angry. Now, I think this is happening. This took place in Washington, D.C. So, state laws don't apply. This is a federal district. But if something like this happened in California, for example, this is exactly the kind of thing that should be investigated and prosecuted. So let me bring this up here for you. There's no sound on this. Okay, so here we go. There is going to be, by the way, there's going to be a guy. You see where this block is? You see this block in the screen? That's a block to hide the face of this victim who gets pummeled by law enforcement. So you're going to watch this person in the bottom left corner, and you're going to see that he's looking at these thugs marching down this, whatever this is, this roadway or whatever, this walkway, whatever this is here. He's facing them. He's facing towards the middle of this frame. And coming up from behind, he gets slammed by some thug. I want you to watch for that. Go. Oh, my bad. There is sound. It was the kissing Putin's ass video that had no sound. So let me start this from the beginning. Go. Boom. That, my friends, is assault. Let's take a look at that again. There he is. He's not looking. He has no idea what's going on behind him. He's looking at these little stormtrooping thugs in front of him. See? He's not doing anything. His hands are down by his side. He's not threatening anyone. Now, I don't know what he might have done right prior to this, but even if he had done something, he's no threat to somebody right now. He poses no threat to anyone. And then, boom, that thug just nails him. And they attack him and jump on him. This, my friends, is assault. At least it certainly seems so from there. Now, having been a prosecutor myself, I am reluctant to pass judgment on things unless I see all the evidence and the full tape and all this kind of stuff, because I know full well that sometimes things aren't exactly what they appear from a clip, right? That having been said, this looks pretty fucking cut and dry to me. That man is standing there, completely unaware of what's going on behind him. He is a threat to nobody. He doesn't appear to be brandishing a weapon. He's certainly not threatening anyone. And he gets slammed from behind. He certainly was no threat to the guy behind him. And that guy was certainly not acting to defend anybody else because he wasn't threatening anyone else. This certainly seems like an open and shut case of assault to me. So, again, I believe this happened in Washington, D.C. So, obviously, Donald Trump is not going to do anything about this. Pam Bondi's not going to do anything about this. The U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, the drunk Janine Pirro, is not going to do anything about this. But imagine if this had happened in Los Angeles. And all kinds of stuff like this happened in Los Angeles. If this happened, then this piece of shit should be arrested and prosecuted. Now, he doesn't have to be prosecuted. Doesn't have to be arrested right there. Because I get this sometimes. People say, "Oh, what are you going to do? Go to war with the police? With federal officers? You want local PD to get into it with the federal law enforcement here or the National Guard or whoever the hell this is?" No, that's not how it would work. You conduct an investigation. You find out who this piece of shit is. You gather all the available evidence. You present it to a grand jury, and you get an indictment. And then you go arrest him. You go arrest him at his house. You go arrest him when he's coming out, to report for Nazi duty in the morning or whatever. That's when you arrest him. It doesn't have to be a showdown between local police and federal thugs. Anyway, I've been telling you for months. That's the kind of thing that should be happening. I don't see that happening yet. Maybe Gavin Newsom will start doing that. And you don't have to just have the governor order this stuff, by the way. There are district attorneys all over the country that have the kind of authority to go after these thugs. What about the district attorney of LA or wherever this kind of stuff might happen? You don't have to wait for the governor to order you to do this. You have authority to do it on your own. And look, I am very happy to see Gavin Newsom doing and saying what he's doing. But we need more. We need more. We need more people in positions of authority to fight back against this authoritarian bullshit that we're seeing from the federal government. And I'm talking about not only just other governors, but state legislatures can enact laws to go, to push back against this thuggery. Not just state legislatures, not just state governors, attorneys general, district attorneys, county attorneys, state attorneys, whatever the prosecutors are in the various states, they have authority to go after this stuff. It's time to start prosecuting these people. They are violating American citizens, and not just Americans. They are violating everyone's rights. Not just American citizens are entitled to constitutional rights in this country. Anyone who's here is entitled to the same protections. I haven't seen any instances. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's one or two out there of these thugs being prosecuted by state officials, by district attorneys or attorneys general or whatever. That's what we need to start seeing. Now, I dealt with canceling elections. How else can states push back against this? Again, if he tries to cancel elections, you tell him to go pound sand. We're having our elections. You don't get to tell us what to do. And by the way, remember he issued an executive order a couple months ago that's being litigated in the courts? I said at the time, yes, it's good you file a lawsuit for sure to try to get the court to strike down his executive order. But in the meantime, you don't comply. Donald Trump issued an executive order to the states about how they are to conduct elections. He has no authority to do that. That executive order is null and void, and every state election official around the country should just ignore it. You ignore these orders unless and until a court tells you that you have to comply. Unless a court decides, you know what, he actually does have the authority to order this specific thing, you need to comply. Okay, fine. The courts played their role. You abide by the court order. But unless and until a court tells you that you have to follow some executive order, until then you say no. F you, pal. We're not doing what you say. You have no authority to tell us what to do. But instead, the opposite seems to be the default setting. Oh, Donald Trump issued an executive order. I guess we have to follow it until, maybe we can win it in the courts and get it overturned. But until then, we got to do what he says. No! That's exactly fucking backwards. You ignore it until a court tells you you have to obey it. That should be the posture of every state, every governor, every mayor, to every one of these unconstitutional executive orders where he tries to tell states and localities what to do. He has no authority over states and localities. You tell him to go fuck himself. Unless and until a court tells you otherwise. So I dealt with the canceling elections. I dealt with prosecuting these fucking thugs. Now, there's another one I hear all the time, and that's Donald Trump's going to run for a third term. In fact, even Gavin Newsom, in his speech the other day, and by the way, I showed clips of this on the Romano Report earlier today. Please watch that video. It's called, what the hell did I title that? I titled it, Hell Yes, Time to Fight. Please watch that video. But in one of those clips, Gavin Newsom is telling the American people to wake up. That Donald Trump is an authoritarian, and if people don't wake up, we're going to lose this country. And one of the things he said is that this man, if we don't wake up, he's going to run for a third term. And that he received from some big Trump donor a Trump 2028 hat in the mail. And that these people are deadly serious, that Trump is going to run for another term. Now, I don't put it past him. I want to put that right out there. I put nothing past this piece of shit. We all saw on live TV, Donald Trump tried to overthrow the republic. He incited a violent insurrection as part of a criminal conspiracy to overthrow the election and stay in power illegally. He directed a mob to attack a co-equal branch of government to prevent them from certifying an election that he lost. Therefore, we should not put anything past him, including trying to run for a third term. Trying to run for a third term and rigging the election. Now, I do not believe for a second that he is going to run for a third term, that he will be on any ballot. I'm not discounting the possibility. I just don't think it's going to happen. And here's why. Because once again, this is something he has no control over. The states control the elections. How's he going to get on the ballot? First of all, there's a very clear constitutional prohibition against him running again. And I don't believe, again, that even this corrupt Supreme Court will interpret the Constitution in any other way, but that he is prohibited from running for office again. So I don't think he gets on for that reason. But even if even if he tried to get on, he has to get on every state's ballot. He doesn't control ballot access. He controls nothing about these elections. What's he going to do? Issue an executive order directing each state to put him on the ballot? Again, what should be their response? Fuck you. That should be their response. We don't do what you say. We don't work for you. Not only that, but this is unconstitutional. You can't run again. You're not getting on our ballot. And Donald Trump violates court orders all the time, right? He ignores them with impunity. What if he goes to this corrupt Supreme Court and they actually do say, oh yeah, the Constitution doesn't mean what it says. Yeah, he can be on the ballot again. And you can't deny him ballot access. So you have to put him on there. He's the Republican nominee. You got to put him on there. You tell the Supreme Court at that time to go fuck themselves. Hey, if Donald Trump can ignore orders of the Supreme Court, then so too can the states. But I don't think for half a second that even this corrupt Supreme Court is going to rule that way. But if they did, the states need to take back their power and say, no, we are not going along with this lawlessness. This is clearly unconstitutional. These friggin' hacks on the Supreme Court are just doing Trump's bidding, and we ain't playing ball. No, he's not getting on the ballot. And if he doesn't get on the ballot, he can't be elected president. The only way that he would be able to get elected president is if enough states go along with this clearly unconstitutional third term run and go along and put him on the ballot, he would need enough states to get to 270 electoral votes. And he wouldn't be able to do it. Because there just aren't enough red states, even assuming all the red states controlled by MAGA cultists do what he says and put him on the ballot, he ain't getting to 270. He's going to need places like Pennsylvania and other states to get on the ballot. Michigan, Wisconsin, states like that. He ain't getting on the ballot. Anyways, it's not happening. And you know who also believes that he's not running again? All the Republicans who are making plans to run themselves in 2028, and there are a lot of them. J.D. Vance, Ted Cruz. Oh, there's a whole bunch of them. Little meatball Ron DeSantis down in Florida. And, I mentioned this the other day, the fascist slob himself, Steve Bannon, if you could believe it, thinks he has a chance of being elected president. He's putting together a presidential run. And this guy has been the biggest proponent out there in public of Donald Trump running for a third term. I've seen him on several podcasts saying, oh yeah, Donald Trump is going to run again and he's going to win. He's going to get elected again in 2028. Meanwhile, he's saying that in public to pander to the Trump cult. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's actually putting together his own presidential campaign because you know why? Because he knows Donald Trump isn't running again. He knows it's all bullshit. But he says this kind of crap to play to the morons in the cult. Anyway, that having been said, I don't put it past him to try. Who the hell knows? And this is a man who is increasingly demented. By the way, Republicans would be out of their mind insane to go along with nominating Trump for a third term. Because then you run the huge risk of, even if he gets elected, that he doesn't have that election certified. Or that the Supreme Court strikes it down after the fact and says, no, he's not a valid candidate. He can't be president. He's invalidated. He can't do it. Unconstitutional. Or that Democrats control Congress by then, which I believe they will at the bare minimum, the House of Representatives. They're not going to certify Donald Trump's third term election. And so what would happen is Republicans would have nominated and run a guy who is constitutionally prohibited and who Congress is not going to certify. So they fail to certify, they refuse to certify him. That means the next in line is the Democrat candidate, even if they lost. Because, assuming the election probably would have been rigged. And it doesn't become J.D. Vance, by the way. That's not how it works. Anyway, for all those reasons and more, I do not believe for a second that Donald Trump is going to be a candidate for president. I think it is much more likely, although, again, I do not put anything past him. And how much more demented and out of his fucking mind will he be by the time of the next presidential election? So who knows? Maybe he does try. I just don't think so. I think what is much more likely, because we've already seen him do this before, is to do something to try to stay in office illegally after the expiration of his term. I think that is far more likely than he tries to run again. And I think it is the most likely scenario is that he tries to do that if a Democrat wins the White House in 2028. Donald Trump will not be a candidate. So it'll be whoever the Republican is and whoever the Democrat is, neither one will be Trump. And so either the Democrat or the Republican's going to win. If the Republican wins, then Donald Trump maybe just says, you know what? I'll just go. I'll go enjoy my millions, my billions that I've grifted off of my mindless cult and that I shook down from corporations and countries around the world and all the kickbacks I've taken and all the bribes and all of that stuff. I'll go enjoy my money, have my ass kissed on my golf course, which is what's my favorite thing to do. I'll go do that knowing that I will never be prosecuted because a Republican is succeeding me. And yes, if he has a half a brain, which is, that is a ridiculous assumption to make. I don't think whatever he has rolling around in his head could possibly constitute even an eighth of a brain, let alone half. But if he was at all intelligent, which he's not, he would realize that as bad as that Supreme Court decision on immunity was, it does not cover by a long shot all the crimes that he has committed and is still committing right now. Only certain crimes are covered by presidential immunity, and he certainly would appear that he has committed a lot of crimes that are not covered by presidential immunity. So he should be thinking about being prosecuted again after he leaves office. And he won't have that worry if a Republican wins the election in 2028. But he would, or he should, if a Democrat wins. So if a Democrat wins, I could see it being much more likely that he tries to stay in office illegally, declare the election rigged, that the Democrat cheated somehow, and refuses to leave office. I think that is much, much more likely than him running for a third term. But who knows? As I said, I don't put anything past him, and Lord knows how demented he'll be by 2028. Okay, that's going to have to do it for now. So much more to talk about. If I am able, perhaps I will do another podcast over the weekend, but I certainly will record more next week. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And please spread the word about this podcast to any family or friends who you think might be interested. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.